My name is Simon Tritschler. I work for BAM in the digital department in BAM, and we work within the digital enabling service. My memories of Athlone are a little bit different to Alan's. Just on the other side of the river here, just a little bit down, there's a culvert that's about 0.6 high, 0.9 wide. And at the start of my surveying career, I spent about 4 days with the total station measuring the inside of that. The culvert is below the level of the river, and we were constantly threatened with rain. This was quite a while ago. It was before we had lots of health and safety, and things were very simple. And when I was thinking about the topic for this conversation or for this presentation, I wanted to make it really simple. So it's not flashy, it's not swanky, it's really simple, really basic, really understanding. Because the real thing here is there an ROI on digital technology? And I don't think there is. So I work for BAM. I'm a land surveyor by training. I qualified up in DIT many years ago. I've worked as a consultant, a salesperson, a trainer. I've worked on mines with the Ordnance Survey, setting up GPS network. I've measured equipment in planes. I've trained county councils in survey work. I've trained the army in GPS. I spent a couple of years out in a large semiconductor facility on one of the largest laser scanning projects in the EU at the time outside of the military. And then I joined BAM around 8 or 9 years ago, and I joined the then BIM department, but now digital department. My time there was spent deploying construction software such as BIM 360, and also working with the teams to integrate laser scanning and technology like that. Over the time, in the last 9 years, BAM has changed considerably, and in the last 2 years, BAM has broken up into, it's no longer the independent companies. We've sold off the likes of BAM Deutschland, BAM Belgium, BAM International. So BAM International, so Greg Byrne that's here, myself, worked out on Museum of the Future out in Dubai, went out there and played in the sun for a couple of days. We built quite a few projects over here, but BAM is changing its business. So you'll note there in the start that I work for BAM UK and I. So we are now a division of BAM. There's the Netherlands, there's the UK and I. We represent about half of the income for BAM, the company. It's about 3 billion thereabouts, about 7,000 people in the UK and I. And I work in a new function called Digital Enabling Services within BAM. Okay, it's completely changed the mindset of what we do, because BAM is changing the way it works. It's moving from its own model, profit-driven production model, it's moving into a value-driven model, and one of the main tenets behind that is going to be the digital tool set. Not digital as a deliverable, but digital as a mindset. Digital as a way to improve how we do things. So what I'm going to go through today is something that's really basic, because I want to show that the value is what we're after with digital, and not an ROI. Okay, so stole this off Wikipedia. You can all read it if you want. You know, doesn't really matter. It's a standard description of what ROI is, but really, it's revenue against what we sold. Okay, did I get bang for my buck on a cash basis? Now, ROI is great when we're looking at something like, you know, I bought a building. I got rent for a number of years. I made money on my investment. I'm a landlord. Woohoo! Loads of money. But when we look at a digital process, and this is simple, when we look at a digital process, where is the ROI? What is an ROI in the digital process? In the life cycle of a building, what is an ROI? You know, we can't look at that and say, so if I look at element design, for example, I have 3 little boxes under that to indicate there's loads of little tasks underneath it. For each of those phases of the life cycle, different things happen to ensure that something is constructed, an element is installed. But is there an ROI in there? If we look at it the point of view from a lean point of view, where we're looking for the value to remove waste, what we're actually looking at is the value-adding moments of that life cycle. As a GC, there's only one value-add moment for that, and that's where we validate what we've installed, the element that we've installed. It's a wall, it's a window, it's a wind farm, it's a hospital, it's a whatever. We only get paid when we validate what has been installed. Okay? For the client, The value, what they've paid for, is when that element exists. We pour the concrete, we put the door in, we put in the window. But that's where the value is for the client. That's what they're paying for. And everything else in the life cycle of construction is there to support that process. The client is paying for the element, the thing that they want to buy, that it's in the right location, the right place, the right time, the right materials, with the right process. For BAM as a GC and for any of the other construction people here, we get paid when we validate that we've put things in the right place. We generate the safety file. We've shown quality assurance. We've attached the asset information, whatever it may be, whatever that deliverable is. That's when we get paid, when we can show that that's what we've done. So is there an ROI in that from a technology point of view? I can't see one. But we do have deliverables. So at the start of that, I have a model. So if I'm a designer, okay, and I'm using a digital tool, I do have a deliverable. I do get paid for making something digitally. I generate a model. I generate a specification. I generate something in a digital world that I can share with other people to make sure that the process happens. It's still not a value add to the client, but it's a part of the process. But they're getting paid for that. For the client, they're getting an element, a building, whatever it may be, but they may also get either a hard building, solid, or a soft building, something like a digital twin or something like that. That's what they're paying for. There's a digital deliverable there, where they're getting either live information or active information, or they're getting passive information they're going to use for O&M, whatever it may be. From a contractor's point of view, the deliverable for us from a digital perspective is the generation of a checklist that validates that we have captured that information. So we will go out and we will say, here's a checklist saying I've done this, this, and this to validate the installation of this element. Here's the photograph to prove it. Here's the laser scan to prove it. Here's the markup on a model to prove that this is what I've done. I provide a checklist digitally to show how something is going to work. But it's still only, how much have I paid to make a digital checklist? Is there an ROI on what I've done? So when I look at all these things, we have loads of tech, right? Room is full of it. We all have phones. There's fantastic tech over there. There's fantastic software. There's platforms. There's hardware, laser scanners, drones. You name it, we have it. It all exists. And it all exists to build this stack to get to the point where we can say, pay me. It gets to the point where the client says, this is what I want, this is what I've got, and we can say, yes, this is what you've got. And we use all of this technology smeared across this process to deliver that. But in very few places do we actually have a deliverable that's digital. Okay, so how do we calculate the ROI on it? It's next to impossible. So when we look at that, we have a little stack. And the reason I put it into a stack rather than the other way is because each one of those little boxes, it's a little bit like a Jenga stand. Okay? If I miss one of those little boxes, one of those little squares there, my whole column falls down. But digital is there to enable us to stop it falling down. It allows us to capture the information at a given time, at a given process, to ensure that we can deliver value to the client and to ourselves, so that we get paid and they get the element that they want. I love the way there's loads of blank faces. It's fascinating. Okay? So you can see here there's loads of technology. If I look at Autodesk Construction Cloud, that is across all of those tasks, all of those little boxes there, no problem. Same with Bentley, Leica, Trimble, Dalux. Evercam's more specific, Oracle's more specific, but they all have their place. Some of them are smeared across a lot of those boxes. So if I take, for example, Autodesk Construction Cloud, that has multiple modules to support the life cycle of a product. Absolute multiple. It goes from design, planning, all the way through, well, almost all the way through to operation. Because they killed off one of their softwares and they're getting a new one. But the process here is understanding how we're going to look after this and make sure it works. So we have our value, we have our deliverables. How do we then understand the digital value across the process? How do we do it? When we go out and we build something, typically what will happen is that the site engineer and the foreman. The foreman will manage the work, and the site engineer will be out there, and they will be out there firefighting to make sure that everything happens as planned. There are very few projects that are executed perfectly. Very, very few that are executed perfectly. Something will happen along one of these stages. One of these boxes will be empty. And when we get to the element install phase, that will then become apparent. We will have missed something. We won't, it will be that the wrong material was delivered. It's the wrong size. It's the wrong shape. Something is not right. In one of those little boxes, in one of the underneath works approved or works allocated, there's a permit missing. There's something missing that will stop the value being delivered, and our Jenga will fall over. Okay? Typically, when we're working out in construction, we capture the information along the way, but when we're validating at the end, that's when we find the problems. And we have to raise an issue back into the system to pick up where the problems are solved, where problems are cases, so we don't repeat the issue. We use checklists for that. Okay? Checklists are just capturing information to make sure something is right. So when we're working on it, oh, I missed a slide. Sorry about that. What I should have said was, we have digital behind all of these things. Okay? So when we're talking about BIM, or information management, or information flow, all of these workflows are supported by digital. So in every one of these boxes here, we're using a digital tool of some type. Whether it's Autodesk, Coins, Dalux, doesn't make a difference. At some point somewhere, we're using all of these steps. And they're all linked together using different things, and we use that to capture information so that we can install it and get it out to the end. So at the end, we have a checklist that is used to validate what we have, that is used to identify the value, that is used as a receipt by the construction company to be a deliverable. Okay? But not for the other phases. We do have BCAR, okay, which allows us to collect information, but only for the delivery of the equipment, delivery of the element. And what we need to do is make sure that we track the value at every phase of construction. Okay, so for every phase of the life cycle, we have to assure that we have captured the right information so that we're not creating a cumulative error at the end that's only found at the end. So one of the big problems is, as they go through the step, if we miss something in sourcing materials or in the work program, that error gets bigger and bigger and bigger until it gets to the end and the site engineer goes, whoa, we don't have this, I can't build it. And the program stops, and value is not delivered to the client because the element is not delivered on time or the way they wanted it. For us, as we look at this, we are going to have to capture each stage of the process to mitigate errors and to ensure we don't have the accumulation of errors towards the end. With digital systems, we can do this. We can track the value. We can track the tasks a lot throughout the process. We can track the schedule, and we can ensure that we don't allow the errors to accumulate. Okay? So 2 slides to go, because
no problem.
he's giving me the fingers now. He's giving me 2 fingers, say 2. Okay? Yeah. So what we're looking at here is tracking the value in the process. We're not really interested in the ROI, because we don't have a deliverable. There's no return on investment for us. If BAM go out and spend X million on ACC, for example, okay, we can't turn up to a project and go, I'll have Y million, please, to pay for the investment that we have. Because the digital systems that we use are not deliverables. Okay, BAM doesn't design stuff. We don't make models as such. Well, we do make models, but we use them internally. But we use our digital tools to ensure that we can capture the value throughout the life cycle to ensure that we can maintain deliverables to the client and then get paid for it by ourselves. One of the big things here at the end is, just on this slide here, is actual metrics, not production indicators. Traditionally, what we do when we're tracking a program is we track the volume of work complete. We don't necessarily track the quality of the work complete. So at every stage you say, yeah, there's a drawing for this, there's a drawing for that, we've ordered these materials, and inevitably what happens is the site engineer at the end gets to the end and goes, I have no information, I can't build this. And that's where it stops. And this is one of the reasons why BAM is moving away from chasing the money to chasing value. Because at the end of the day, The thing that we need to reduce is rework. Fundamentally, the most expensive thing we have is rework. And we are using digital tools to enable our value proposition to reduce rework in our products. Thank you very much.
Thank you.